A republic is a form of political system wherein individuals have elected representatives whose job is to respond to their needs and communicate those in the government. You would say that probably the United States is something much closer to a representative democracy, that is, a republic. So, to continue with that notion, there is an example of republican government when Moses gets into the desert with the huge group of people, and his wise father-in-law recognizes that Moses would be better off dealing with big picture problems, and that he would be worse off trying to deal with every single individual's problems one-on-one. Probably because most humans can't, even more probably because Moses had a temper issue that had to do with fairness and justice and things like that. And it seems very likely that he could have done something real bad, according to his own previous track record of mistakes, to somebody who frustrated him. But he said, here's the solution, Moses. We're going to cluster people into groups of 10, the word Esser, and each group of 10 is going to report to another guy who is part of a group of 10, and so on, so that eventually you'll just have a bunch of people at the tops of communication chains, either fixing problems or passing problems on, so that when problems come to you, the small ones have been handled and only the biggest ones have come to you. And you won't be in a position to have to deal with every minor problem, but you can focus on big ones. And so this is what happens in a republic type of government, is that we can deal with smaller problems on a local level, which is fantastic. And we don't have to deal with every single individual person's voice simultaneously. Because no human is wired to deal with. God is wired to deal with that. God is actually completely wired to hear everybody's problems simultaneously, understand them deeply, engage with them, and respond. That's omnipotence, okay? So in that sense, you can communicate to God, and you don't need an intermediary. But in terms of managing human needs and arrangements, that's absolutely required, a more Republican perspective. However, the problem with elections in general is the Bible talks about appointing leaders. The Bible talks about leaders that are either appointed by God himself, appointed representatively by prophets, in some cases appointed when groups of spirit-led people select someone based on a biblical and a spirit-given criterion. So when we elect leaders, we're putting ourselves in the position of God, because that's another thing we're attaching our emotions to, the idea that, well, it can't be a real leader if I didn't elect him. It's not fair. But if God is meaning to be the sole elector of all leaders, we should be doing that in the church, and we should be expecting that to be occurring in heaven. And we should detach ourselves from this ridiculous attachment that, wait a minute, they made a leader without my permission? They didn't get my vote on it? How dare you think that you get to vote on the things of God? You don't get to vote on the things of God. God's the sole elector of heaven, and we are seeing in our own lives a transformation of how we operate into how heaven operates. Unless you want the biggest shock of your life, when how you operate politically absolutely handicaps you for dealing in heaven. Okay, if I have blessed you, encouraged you, or equipped you in any fashion, please like, subscribe, and comment. Pray more, complain less.